Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to College Football Saturday. We're doing our NFL picks for tomorrow. Fantastic stuff. Gotta love the weekend of fall. It's football. I mean, it's just absolutely fantastic. I'm just on cloud nine during the weekends, during football season. It's just sit back, relax, and enjoy the games. So guys, let's talk about my week one picks before we get into week two. Let's talk about some of my good picks and my bad picks. First off, I had a pretty bad week overall. I got 6 games right and 9 games wrong. Nice. And that's 15 games total, so I haven't been picking the Thursday night game. I've just been telling you guys who I picked in retrospect. So with this week 2 game, real quick, I did end up picking the Ravens to win, and as you can see above me, the Bengals won. So I'm already 0 for 1 this week, unfortunately, but we'll get into my real picks for this week in a second. Let's just talk about last week a little bit. So overall, rough week. The NFL is crazy, and that's what's awesome about it. Like, I had no idea what was going to happen. Let's talk about a couple picks that I think I got right, and a couple picks that I think I was just way off on. Starting off with the Redskins, I said in my last week's video that they were going to be a good team, maybe a 10-win team, and they showed that. They looked really good. They destroyed the Cardinals, so that was a good pick. The Jets was another pick that I had that was a great pick. Obviously, I'm super pumped about that game since the Jets played amazing, so I was not expecting for them to play that good, but my goodness, they destroyed the Lions. Some of my bad picks, I would say the Colts. I kind of misjudged the Colts. They looked kind of bad against the Bengals, but who knows? Maybe the Bengals are actually good. So I was not expecting the Bengals to be as good as they are. They're already 2-0. They got the best record in football. And then another pick that was really bad, and this was pretty similar for probably most people, but the Saints. I was not expecting the Buccaneers and Ryan Fitzpatrick to go for like 400 yards and 5 touchdowns against the Saints. I don't know what the hell was happening there. But overall, not a great week for me. Only 6 right. I am picking against the spread. If I was picking not against the spread and just doing straight pick 'em, I would have done better. But that's the whole fun of it, is that you have to try to predict the spread. So let's get started with our week 2 picks. Hopefully we can do better. My goal is to get 10 wins this week, so let's see if we can do it. All right, so here we go, guys. So by the way, I took some feedback. I zoomed in the screen a little bit so you guys can see the whole games better. So we're on a little bit of a higher zoom. So you guys can see the lines and see the games better. I'm probably going to add some NFL music in the background. I'm just going to have to find some music that isn't copyrighted. And, we'll go from there. We'll just kind of, add some things to the videos every week to make these more interesting. But let's get into this. So, again, we're going to skip this Ravens-Bengals game. I picked the Ravens, so I'm already over 1. Let's start here with the Panthers and the Falcons, okay? So I already did my picks in my pool, so I can kind of base off that. I'm basically going to be making the same picks. So with this one, the Falcons are at home and favored by 6. And I'm going to go with the Falcons here to bounce back after the loss from the Eagles. They've had a lot of time to prepare for this game. I think they're going to beat the Panthers. I honestly was not even that impressed by the Panthers in week 1. Even though they did win, they beat the Cowboys. But I think they weren't, amazing. So I think the Falcons are going to bounce back and win that game by a touchdown. So I'm going with the Falcons. Next up, we have the Chargers and the Bills. And I'm going to go with the Chargers. Again, the Chargers are coming off a loss, so they're probably pissed off. They want to take it to the Bills. If you guys remember last year, the Bills-Chargers game was the one where Nathan Peterman threw 6 interceptions or something like that. So I don't think it's going to be that bad, but I do think the Chargers are going to roll in this game by at least 2 touchdowns. The Bills look pretty bad. I said that in last week's video, and it came true. They look like the worst team in the NFL, which is great for me as a Jet fan, but sucks for Bills fans. So I'm going to go with the Chargers here to cover that spread of 7.5, win that game by 10 points, 14 points. Next up, we have the Packers-Vikings. This is a really good game, and it's a 1 o'clock game, too. You'd think a game like this would be prime time. It's a heavyweight battle. I'm not sure if Aaron Rodgers is going to play. I'm curious to see what happens with that. However, I am going to go with Green Bay here to win this game. It's basically a pick 'em with a 1-point spread, and it is at home for the Packers. So I am going to pick Aaron Rodgers here and the Packers to win this game. Now, if Aaron Rodgers comes out tomorrow afternoon and is a game-time decision and it doesn't play, well, then that sucks for me. But I think if he does play, I think they will beat the Vikings by a very small amount. It's going to be a close game. So I'm going to go with the Packers. Next up, we have the Texans and the Titans. So we got a battle of the AFC South teams. Mariota might not play. Deshaun Watson had a bad week 1 against the Patriots, but he picked it up in the second half. Overall here, I am going to go with the Texans. Just want to make sure that I actually have the same pick here on my list. It's not the same order, so I kind of have to fish through to find it. Here it is, yeah. So I am going to go with the Texans with this one. They are favored by 3. I expect them to probably win that game by a touchdown. Both these teams need a win. This is actually a really important divisional matchup for those teams for their playoff hopes later in the year. Because there's a stat only 10% of teams make it to the playoffs after starting out 0-2. The Saints did it last year, but they had 2 tough games to start the year. And I think it's even like a less percentage if one of your two losses is a divisional loss. So that's a big game between the Texans and the Titans in terms of their aspirations for long-term success this season. Next up, we have the Cleveland Browns and the Saints. The Saints are favored by 9.5. I went all in on the Saints last week to cover that spread against the Bucs, and they failed me miserably. I'm going to double dip and go for them again. This is my last chance to give the Saints a big spread. So I'm going to give them a chance to beat the Browns by 14. The Saints are going to be pissed off. The Browns are walking into trouble. At least that's what I think. So I'm going to go with the Saints here. This is my last time I'm picking them, though, with a high spread because their defense just might suck this year, and they might not be as good as they were last year. Next up, we have my Jets going up against the Dolphins. Big game tomorrow at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. Home game for the Jets, home opener. We need to win this game because it's a divisional matchup. Both teams are 1-0. I'm going to pick the Jets. I'm going with my team again. I picked them last week, and they paid off for me. I really liked what I saw from the Jets, going to be honest. I'm actually getting a little excited for the future of the Jets. Not necessarily this season, but like long term. I think we have some good players. We got Sam Darnold. So I am going to go with the Jets to cover that spread. I think they can win that game by a field goal. Next up, we have the Chiefs and the Steelers. This is another really good game. Let me just quickly reference to see who I picked in this one. Let's see. I picked the Pittsburgh Steelers to beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs had a great game one against the Chargers, and Patrick Mahomes really impressed me. Again, I said last video that I wasn't really sold on Patrick Mahomes, but I got to admit, he looked really good in that game. He looked like this gunslinger quarterback, something that Alex Smith couldn't provide for that offense, and that offense fits him really well with those deep threats like Tyreek Hill. He had a big game. Tyreek Hill, man. That guy is a nasty big play receiver. So, the Chiefs are really good, but I think it's home for the Steelers. I think the Steelers bounce back after that stupid game against the Cleveland Browns last week in that bad weather where a bunch of field goals were missed. The Steelers probably should have won that game. That was really pathetic that they tied. So I expect the Steelers to bounce back and win this game by a touchdown against the Chiefs. But that one I'm a little fishy on, so I wouldn't be surprised if I got that one wrong, to be honest. But I'm going to go with my gut. Next up, we have the Eagles and the Buccaneers. We got a lot of 1 o'clock games today, or tomorrow, I should say. Eagles and Buccaneers. Buccaneers at home. Eagles are favored by 3.5. I'm going to go with the Eagles, and here's the reason. The Saints' defense is not the Eagles' defense. Eagles' defense is one of the top 3 or 4 defenses in the NFL, and their pass rush is nasty. So I don't expect Ryan Fitzpatrick to sit back there all day and sling the ball around the field like he did down in the Superdome. So I expect the Eagles to put pressure on Fitzpatrick, force him into a couple of interceptions, and I think Nick Foles will continue to play complimentary football. And the Eagles will play a similar game to what they did with the Falcons last week and defeat the Buccaneers by a touchdown. So I'm going to go with the Eagles there. Next up, we have the last 1 o'clock game. We got the Redskins and the Colts. I think I'm going to keep riding this Redskins train here. Let me see who I picked. Yeah, I picked the Redskins. Yeah, I'm going to keep riding this Redskins train. The Colts did not look good in week 1. I picked them last week, and they kind of let me down. The Redskins are favored by 6. It's at home for them. They played great last week. I think the Redskins will continue this. And again, like I've said last week, I think that's one of the most underrated teams in the NFL. And this is my hot take for the NFL season. The Washington Redskins are going to win the NFC East. That's my hot take right there. So go ahead and mark that down on freezing cold takes. See what happens. So I am going to pick the Redskins. I'm going to roll with them in back-to-back weeks. All right, so let's move on to the afternoon games. They're all afternoon, but afternoon on the West Coast. 4 o'clock games. Rams and Cardinals. Rams are favored by 13, man. That is tough, but I think they're going to win by 14. I'm taking the Rams. I'm going all in on them. They destroyed the Raiders. I don't think the Cardinals are better than the Raiders. They're probably about the same, like mediocre team, probably a bad team. I expect the Rams to roll in their home opener and defeat the Cardinals by 2 touchdowns. Next up, we have the 49ers and the Lions, and I think I chose the Niners here, but I'm not 100% sure. Let me just check my picks here. I got my trusty laptop with all my picks on it already, so I'm kind of checking them. The thing is, like, on there, it's the team names and it's the team cities on here, so it's like, and they're not in the same order, so I have to kind of like quickly fish for them real quick. So it's San Francisco against Detroit. I actually did pick San Francisco. Their line is 6 points to beat the Lions. I think San Francisco will probably bounce back and win this game. They honestly looked pretty decent against the Vikings, who I think are one of the top 3 teams in the league. So, there are a couple things go differently. Jimmy D plays a little bit better. I think the 49ers could have won that game potentially. So I think they'll beat up on the Lions. The Lions look bad, obviously. The Jets steamrolled them. So I think the Niners will win that game and cover that spread. But that's another one that I'm really fishy on, that I'm thinking about changing my pick. But no, I'm going to stick with it. All right, so we got a couple more games at 4 o'clock. We got the Raiders and the Broncos. 6.5 spread for the Broncos at home against the Raiders. Who did I pick with this one? I picked Denver, but on my other thing, the spread is 5.5. So I might pick the Raiders here. I'm going to pick the Raiders on this one, even though I picked Denver on my other one, just because the spread is different. So I don't know why the spread is different on here. I must have locked it in when it was the spread must have changed. It kind of annoys me that if like you do your picks on Thursday, like the spread changes by Sunday. I know that's because like certain players, like the inactive reports come out and trends kind of change. But that's kind of annoying that the spreads aren't locked in on a certain date. I don't know if it's like 24 hours before the game or not, but it's like I feel like it's like I do my picks on like Wednesday before the Thursday night games, and by the time Sunday rolls around, the spreads are different. So whatever, it's not that big of a deal. So yeah, I'm gonna pick the Raiders here. I'm gonna switch my pick from my original picks and take the Raiders to cover the spread. I don't think they're gonna beat the Broncos, but I think they'll cover the spread. All right, Jaguars and Patriots. This is another really good game. I'm picking the Patriots. Let's move on. Giants and Cowboys. I'm picking the Giants. That's it, guys. Sunday night is done. Let's go ahead and move on to the Monday night game. So if you're wondering why I just skip right over the Patriots and the Giants, that's like my rule in football is I always pick the Patriots and I always pick the Giants. It's just simple as that. Nothing really needs to be said about it. So yeah, we got the last game here. Monday Night Football. Seahawks and Bears. Kind of a lame game. A couple of 0-1 teams. But overall, I'm going to pick the Bears. I really didn't like what I saw from the Seahawks, to be honest. Their defense is not as good as it used to be. I think the Bears actually were pretty good. They just got beat by like Aaron Rodgers' miracle. It's at home for the Bears. I expect them to win that game by 3.5 and take that spread. So that's going to be my picks for this week, guys. Feeling fairly confident about my picks, but I said that last week and I did pretty bad. So as long as I do better this week than last week, that'll be great. Obviously, you kind of got to get used to the trends of these teams. You kind of get an idea of how good teams are. For example, I thought the Colts were a lot better than it seems like they are, but at the same time, the Bills seem like they're pretty bad. So that's a team that I probably won't be picking very much this year. But yeah, guys, that's going to wrap up my picks for week 2. Thank you guys for tuning in. Leave a like if you're liking the NFL picks, and I'll be back next Saturday for my week 3 picks. We'll discuss my week 2 picks, what my results were for that, how I did, and we'll move forward from there. In other news, football news, I won my fantasy matchup in week 1. I beat Jack in our fantasy league, which I'm happy about. So I am 1-0 in that, which is great. That's what really matters because, fantasy virtuoso right here. I won my league last year. Anyway, that's it, guys. Thank you for watching my week 2 picks. I'll be back next week for week 3. See you guys then. Drop a like. Dan Lags. Peace out.